workshop held by the Boston Taiwanese Biotechnology Association, BTBA. I'm Annie Chen, the co-director of academia team working with Meng Ru. Today, we invite two excellent researchers to share their work with us. As usual, before we start, I would like to advertise that we're going to have an industry workshop on 27th, how to find your career path in the biotech industry. I believe for those of you who are seeking or who will be seeking a job in biotech, you will get a bunch of useful advices from our speakers. For those pursuing academic career, I'm super excited to announce that we're going to have a conversation with Cai Miaozhi 博士, who is now a senior scientific editor at Cell. From her, we will be learning about the secret of publishing our research in the top journal, as well as the life as a journal editor. So this workshop will be held on April 9th in person. We very look forward to seeing you all there. And of course, we will continue holding our academic seminar in April. Stay tuned to our BTBA social media for the detail. And a friendly reminder, don't forget that the US daylight saving time is gonna start on this Sunday, which means that Taiwan will be 12 hours ahead of Boston. So be sure to mark your calendar down with the correct event time. Now, let me hand over to our moderator, Zheng Yayun 博士. She was a postdoc research fellow at the Department of Environmental Health at Harvard University, T.H. Chen School of Public Health. And she is now back to Taiwan. Hello, Yayun.
Hello, everyone. I'm Yayun, and nice to meet you all here. And at the beginning, let's take a group picture first, and please turn on your camera and just smile. And let's wait a moment. Everyone, please turn on the camera, and let's count down 3, 2, 1, and just smile. And one more. 3, 2, 1. Okay. Now let's at the moment, and please Professor can share your screen, and let's on behalf of BTBA, it's a great honor and privilege to invite Professor Wu Zhida for the first talk of today's seminar. Professor Wu is an associate professor of the Department of Geometry, National Cheng Kung University. He is also an adjunct research fellow of the National Institute of Environmental Health Science, National Health Research Institute. Professor Wu's research interests mainly focus on the application of Geographic Information System and the remote sensing technology on environmental epidemiology, such as in air pollution monitoring and the surrounding greening health benefits. Professor Wu's today's topic will be geomatic and its application on air pollution. Let's welcome Professor Wu now. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for introduction from Dr. Zheng. Before I start my talk, I just want to make sure everybody can see my slides. And is there any problems? Okay. So thanks for invitation from BTBA and also Professor and also Dr. Zheng. And I am Wu Zhida. I'm now teaching in the Department of Geomatics, National Cheng Kung University. It's a great honor for me to have this chance to come here and share some of our research findings and about air pollution modeling and also the air pollution exposure assessment. And here I just have one slide to briefly introduce my background stories. I got my PhD degree from National Taiwan University, but actually I am graduated from the Department of Forestry. So, I mean, in our department, every student learns like something like forest vegetation and ecosystems, something like a very natural aspect of studies. But to be honest, I'm not really a good student for forestry. I'm not a fan for this kind of conventional forestry studies. But In our department, we also learn some technology like the GIS, Geographic Information Systems, and also remote sensing, because we have to manage such a very big coverages of forest areas in Taiwan. I don't really know how many people of you might know the real numbers of the forest coverage in Taiwan, but let me tell you, totally in Taiwan, we have around 60% of our continental is covered by forest. Also, to be honest, it's very difficult to have everybody go there and to check the status of forest every day, every year. So in this case, remote sensing or GIS might provide you as a very useful kit to manage such a big area. So we learn GIS and remote sensing. So after I got my PhD degree, I want to do something, for the whole academic career, I want to do something I'm really interested in. So I got a job offer from the academic syndicat from Research Center for Environment Changes. I went there. So I started working in the air pollution issues. Then I'm very lucky. I got many supports from some senior researchers and professors. So I got a grant. I could have a chance to visit HSPH, Harvard School of Public Health. So I stayed there for my postdoc researches for around 2 years. Then I came back to Taiwan. I started my teaching career at the Jiayi University. Around 3 years ago, I get an offer from National Cheng Kung University. So I'm teaching now in National Cheng Kung University. Like the information from Yayun. My major research interest mainly focuses on 2 aspects. The first one is about air pollution studies. The second one is about surrounding greenness and its associations and the benefits for human health. So due to the time limitation, I might not be able to go very details about everything I have now in the past year. So I will mainly focus on some findings related to air pollution modeling. Okay. So I just have this slide to let you know what is our student, from the Department of Geomatics, what are students did to learn or do in our department. So you can see our students will learn remote sensing. Just like, in recent years, I think UAV is also a very popular tools to manage the natural resources for big areas. So we also learn UAV. We also, the very original of our department students, the very basic knowledge is to learn how to conduct the ground surveying. So we also learn this part. We also have some professors, they are working on something like a big data analysis. So we also try to combine data from IoTS and into some like a big data analysis. And we have this kind, we have an environmental database from this kind of tools or sensors. Then we integrate everything into a GIS system. So based on this kind of a GIS system, we can have a way to conduct some like the spatial analysis and also to conduct some statistical analysis to understand the association between the environment, pollution, and the human health. So for my part, I mainly apply this kind of technologies on air pollution and surrounding greenness. So before we start to talk about the main topics of air pollution today, let me show you this slide. So you guys must be very familiar with this, right? So this is Massachusetts. So on this slide, you can see the yellow point on this slide indicates the locations of air pollution monitoring stations in Massachusetts. And on this slide, I show only the formal one. The formal monitoring stations established by US EPA. So totally, if you count the number on this slide, you can see around 20 monitoring stations we have in across the whole Massachusetts. If you know the size of the continent for Massachusetts is around 2/3 of Taiwan, but let's check the status in Taiwan. So on this slide, we just show you the number of air mining stations in Taiwan. Compared with Massachusetts, we have a much better numbers in the location in the air quality mining stations in Taiwan, but the number is around 76. If you check the locations and the distribution of the air mining stations in Taiwan, you can see, for example, my hometown is in Jiayi, so I'm now over here. So for the whole Jiayi city, we have only 1 air quality mining stations. That indicates everybody staying in Jiayi, your exposure level to air pollution will be represented by the the measurements from this single mining stations. But to be honest, this is not true, right? So that I mean, the very limited number of air pollution information from the limited numbers of the mining station will also affect the results in like when we assess the association between air pollution exposure and human health. But I think we need to find a way, I mean, how to deal with this kind of challenge to estimate the spatial variations of air pollution from a much better way. This is a very important issue when you conduct the air pollution studies. So in the past 10 years, my lab and my group, we try our best and we try to propose three. We just call it maybe the innovative approach. So find some ways to model air pollution variations with a better accuracy. So all of the three approaches is based on a methodology called as land use regression. So let me give you some example of what is land use regression. So from this slide, you can see the green point is mining stations. And we must agree with that. I mean, air pollution doesn't come by itself. I mean, every air pollution is usually emitted from the emission sources, right? So from remote sensing and GIS, we can know the distributions of the land use land carbon emission sources across the whole Taiwan. So let's see, even though for this kind of, for some other areas, I mean, outside of the air mining station, we don't really have a measurement for everywhere, but we can have the locations or distributions of emission sources from GIS and remote sensing. So if we can establish an association model, for example, here you can see we use the air pollution measurements from the mining station as a container variables, and then we calculate its surrounding land use land carbon emissions distributions surrounding by the mining stations. Then we try to establish regression models. In the case, these models works very well. So of course, we can apply this model to estimate the locations without measurements. Because we know everything from GIS and remote sensing, we can have a distributions of land use land carbon emission sources from GIS and remote sensing. So we just have to calculate the density or from the GIS, then we input this model, so we can estimate the air pollutants level for a non-measured area. So from the pictures on the left-hand side, we generate a model, then we can use this kind of model based on the GIS, the spatial analysis tools provided in GIS systems, then we can obtain the pictures like this one. So we can have a great map for air pollutants for every time, every locations in the whole, for every locations in Taiwan. So based on this kind of land use regression approaches, we try to propose three innovative approaches. For example, in the first one, my idea is let's say compared with the Western countries or European areas, I mean, in Taiwan or in the Asia countries, we have much more complicated emission sources. For example, in US, I suppose you might not see this kind of situation, right? We don't really have that many like the Asian temples in US, but in Taiwan we have a lot. You must know incense burning and also the paper money burning also is also a very important part of emission sources for air pollution. And also, if you check the restaurants in the Boston city, I'm not pretty sure whether you can see this kind of situation very often. I mean, but if you compare to Taiwan, you want to enjoy a nighttime with your friend, you go to a Chinese restaurant, so you can see everybody using a big fire to stir the foods. And this also is also very typical emission sources in Taiwan. So our first approach is we try to incorporate this kind of culture-specific emission sources like the Chinese restaurants and also temples into a land use regression model, somehow to establish a much more localized models for Taiwan area. So we published some papers based on these approaches. In the second step, we try to propose a hybrid approach, and this time we again also based on the land use regression approaches, we try to incorporate the expansions of air pollution on the other approach called the kriging. I mean, some of you might heard about this one, but basically this is just an interpretation, let's say. So we try to combine these two approaches to obtain a more accurate estimation for air pollution. We also published some papers. Now let's say the current status of air pollution in our lab, we majorly focus on the approach 3. So this time we again use land use regressions to obtain the land use land carbon emission sources. Now we don't really use the conventional like the linear regressions approaches to fit model. Instead of that, we try to incorporate some much more innovative machine learning algorithms, because you guys must know, machine learning compared with linear regression, machine learning might be able to explain a much more complicated association between the dependent variables and the predicted variables. So this time we combine linear regression and the machine learning to try to fit a better model to estimate air pollution in Taiwan. So for my talk today, I will majorly introduce one case related to approach 3, linear regression-based machine learning models. And this time we mainly focus on the air pollutions like the nitrogen dioxides in Taiwan. Okay, so actually nitrogen dioxides is a very important air pollution, particularly for urban area. But the major sources of nitrogen dioxide is emitted from the vehicles, from the traffic. And I'm pretty sure some of you are from Taipei City, and you can see a lot of traffic violence, or a lot of traffic and vehicles or cars in the Taipei City. So this also brings a very strong impact to human health in the big city. So nitrogen dioxide is one of the very important air pollutions, really for the urban area. So as I mentioned to you, we need to find a way to deal with how to estimate the air pollution variations better. So the conventional linear regression, this is good because we can use the GIS to have the linear covering information from GIS and remote sensing. We just simply use linear regression to establish a model. I think the strengths of linear regression is because some of you might be a fans of statistical analysis. So linear regression allows us to use some like this forward, backward, or stepwise variable selections procedure to identify the important predictables. That indicates that linear regression can help us to reduce the dimensions of predicted variables. So, and also can help us to know which kind of variables are the important variables with explain the nitrogen dioxide. So this is strength for linear regression. But I mean, linear regression is totally based on the linear assumptions between predicted variables and dependent variables. So it's not able to explain very well for nonlinear trend in these two factors. So if we check this machine learning, machine learning is much better in explaining a very complicated linear or nonlinear trend between the predictors and the dependent variables. But if based on my understanding, most of the machine learning approaches, they don't really provide very good approaches to reduce the dimensions of predicted variables. So that indicates, based on the conventional or the most of the machine learning approaches, we don't really have a way to know which variables are important for explaining the air pollutions. And we don't really have a very good way to reduce the number of dimensions applied in the developed models. So our idea is to combine the strengths of these two approaches. We use the linear regressions. We use a stepwise linear regressions to select the important variables to reduce the number of predictors. Then we import only the selected important variables by linear regression into several machine learning algorithms. So we use them to fit the models for expanding the air pollution variation. So this is our idea. And based on the proposed models, we can, based on the outcomes from this kind of model, actually we can estimate very well with very good accuracies to estimate for the daily air pollution variation for the whole island of Taiwan, and with 50 meter times 50 meter grid sizes from 2000 to actually to 2020. So that things indicate you can imagine that based on our model, you can have a lot of pictures or figures. On that figures, if you zoom into the figures, every grid size, every grid covers the ground area like the 15 meter times 50 meter. So every 50 meter times 50 meter, you will have a major estimations for air pollution for that area. Then we can provide this. We can then use this kind of air pollution distribution maps to identify people's exposure level to air pollution, then to assess their association with some instance of diseases. So this slide shows the database we use for the analysis. We obtain the air pollution measurement. For nitrogen dioxide from the Taiwan EPA. And the data is ranged from obtained from 2000 to 2018. So totally we use the sample size is around 0.5 million observations for the data analysis. And we also collected some pollutants like the other type of pollutants and also some meteorological factors as a predictive variables in the model. And here just shows the list of land use land cover information we use as a predictors to predict the model. So from several type of GIS or remote sensing databases, we can know the distribution like the local road, major road, all types of road, and also some land use land cover information like the residential, commercial residential, industrial residential, or payday, orchard, farmland, water, or temple and restaurants. So we can know that distribution just like we show you on right hand side. So we can know that distribution, so we can calculate the number of this kind of emission sources surrounding a specific ranges to monitoring stations. Then we use this kind of information as predictive variables. And we also include some information from satellite. So we have an NDVI measurement to represent the green spaces surrounding the monitoring stations. And we also use this one as a predictive variables for model development. So in general, we totally have around 600 predictive variables in our database for model fittings. And this kind of this 600 of predictive variables is from different buffer ranges surrounding the monitoring stations. We totally calculated the distribution of predictive variable from this is the radius range rated from 50 meters to 5K meters surrounding the monitoring station. So we have different type of monitoring air pollution emission sources information from different buffer ranges surrounding the monitoring stations. So you can see we have a bunch of predictive variables. So this is very important how to identify the important predictive variable from this 600. It becomes a very good challenge for this kind of study. So here is the framework of the whole study. So we develop a database. We have an NO2 measurement from Taiwan EPA. We have a predictive variables from some GIS and remote sensing databases. Then in the first step, we use the spearman correlation analysis to identify the association between the predictive variables and the NO2. Only in the case the predictive variables has the right direction of effects with NO2 will be included for the stepwise equations. That in case, for example, we know road density. Road is a very important emission sources for NO2. So in the case when we calculated the association with nitrogen dioxide, if we found the correlation coefficients, the correlation coefficients between road and the nitrogen dioxide is positive, then we can further include this one into the okay. Yes. It looks like someone is helping me to handle the screen, right? Okay, thank you. So let's go back to this one. So in this case, the association between the predictive variable and the air pollution is correct. Then we can be further included into the stepwise equations analysis. And we use this one to we use only the variables with the right direction of effects in the stepwise equations. So we then use the stepwise equation to identify the important predictive variables Then only the selected important variable by the stepwise equation will be used to establish the model, prediction models by using 3 types of machine learning algorithms. I'm not pretty sure who is now controlling my my screen, but yeah. Okay. So back here, I just want to let you know, totally we use 2 types of stepwise equations in our studies. The first one is just like a conventional land use equation. I mean, in this one we use land cover predictive variables to develop to establish the prediction models. The second one, we use the hybrid curriculum land use regression models. For this one, compared with the first land use regression approaches, we just include only one more additional predictive variables. This one is based on the region interpretations, region interpreted air pollution labels as a predictive variables. So compared with the first approaches, we include only one more predictive variables in the second one, but don't worry about the details for this kind of approaches. Actually, we just I don't really know what's happened. Yeah. So
hike. Would you mind stop sharing the screen and
okay, let me do it
again? Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it might be some of the remote control problem. I checked the annotation, so please share again.
Okay, let me give it a try.
Yeah.
Give one more try. So, but maybe I have to stop this one, right?
Yeah, you can share
Okay.
your screen again.
Okay.
From Zoom. It's weird. Like
so this never happened before, right?
Yeah. Your screen comes to now it's your screen. The last share of screen is something like a weird Google search, but now it's okay.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so now everything works well. So let's go back to the slides. Yeah, I think it's almost. We also have some time issues, right? I will try my best to finish it at on time. So okay, so we use 3 types of. Yeah, you can see someone is trying to remotely control my panel. Decline. So okay. So we use random forest and attributes, and these 3 are very popular machine learning algorithms, and they have been applied in the previous studies. So we just use these 3 algorithms for model development. So basically, totally 8 models were developed in this study. We use linear regression, use stepwise regressions to identify the important variables, then use this variable to couple with the DNN, random forest, and attributes. So we developed 4 types of model based on the conventional linear regression approaches. We also use a hybrid linear regression approach, and this one only includes 1 more additional predicted variables from region. Then use this one to run the regressions. Then we just use the important variables selected by these models then to fit the prediction model based on DNN, random forest, and attributes algorithms. So totally 8 models were developed and compared in these studies. And we also conducted several types of the overfitting tests. For example, we try to split our data into 2 parts. We use 80% of the data for training model training for development model, and we use the rest of 20% of the data as external data verification for confirm the model reliabilities. And we also conduct a tenfold cross validation. We also have the data from 2007 and 2018. Use this data from these 2 years as external data for confirm the model reliability. Yeah. Okay.
We are trying to unhike that.
Okay. Should I continue my presentation, or we just have to stop and wait for a while?
No worries. We're trying to
continue.
Okay.
You can continue with it.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so this slide show you the nitrogen dioxide in the past 20 years. So you can see this is measurement from 2000 to 2016. So basically, Taiwan EPA also did some very good works. In general, the trends, it just shows the discrete trends for the nitrogen dioxide in Taiwan. And you can see the mean levels of the nitrogen dioxide in the past 17 years, let's say, it's around 17. You compare with the criterions established by Taiwan EPA is 30 ppb. I think nitrogen dioxide did not bring the big problems to us in Taiwan. So here just show you the box plots for NO2 levels among different types of mining stations, and as we expected, we have the highest level from the traffic stations, and we have the lowest level from the national park stations. No problem for these 2. And due to time limitation, I only show you results from the hybrid land use regression-based models. So the first column indicates the model performance from the hybrid land use regressions. But this one is based on the linear regression approach to establish a model, no problem. So the overall R-square is around 0.878. And here I say this one increased around 30% of the explanatory power is because when we compare with the conventional land use regression, this R-square is around 0.65. Due to time limitation, I don't really have time to talk about that part, but I mean, the reference for the comparison in this one is the model developed by using a conventional land use regression. So this one, somehow, I mean, this is our proposed approach 2, right? Somehow it will increase the model performance. If you further combine this one with several different types of machine learning algorithms, so you can see this time, the model performance becomes like 90%, 90%, and 91%. Now, among the 3 machine learning-based approaches, I mean, attributes perform very well because you can see the elapsed time only required 1 minute. But if you compare with CNN, this one requires around 1 hour, 1.5 hours. So this is a really time-consuming algorithm. Okay, and we also conduct several types of validations. For this one, we use the developed model to estimate the NO2 variations in 2017 and 2018. Again, the model still perform very well. The very robust R-square is very consistent with the model developed by using the data set. And if you, and this one just show you the overall picture about the model performance. So this is our R-square obtained from attributes 0.991, very good. And here just show you the estimation. This is just the pictures to show you the estimations and the predictions, and they are almost overlapped on these pictures. And if you check the mean level of NO2 from the measurement and also from predictions, they are very, very close. So that indicates our model can provide a very reliable and a very robust estimation for NO2 levels in Taiwan. So we then first apply this model, we couple with some GIS spatial analysis tools, so we can generate this type of maps. So this one indicates the overall trend. I mean, just aggregate levels from 2000 to 2016. So you can see we have higher higher NO2 levels in some big cities like Taipei, Taichung, Kaohsiung areas, and the rest of the picture just show you the annual NO2 maps from 2000 to 2016. So just I mentioned to you, based on this kind of approaches, my lab, we can generate a lot of pictures, so we can have a map for every single day for every locations. So for example, we just try to. So in this case, we can apply this kind of data to assess the impacts on human health. So this is a summary of the proposed approaches for NO2 studies. So basically, we'll try to combine land use regressions with some machine learning approaches. And in general, we obtain a very good prediction powers, around 90% of the expected powers compared with the previous studies. So we propose 3 types of approaches, and we also apply these 3 types of approaches to estimate the evolutions in Taiwan for several studies. For example, in this one, we just duplicated the same machine learning-based land use regression models, and this time we focus on PM2.5. We also have an application of PM2.5 variations for the whole island of Taiwan for past 10 years. And this time, we work together with Professor Guo Haozhan from National Cheng Kung University. And this time, our target pollutant mainly focus on the CO carbon monoxide. We also have become interest in just like the industrial emissions. So this one, we focus on the VOC emissions. So we apply the machine learning approaches to estimate the BTS pollutants in Kaohsiung. And you must know Kaohsiung is a very important heavy metal industry city, industry cities in Taiwan. We also work together with academic Sinica, and this time we focus on the compounds of PM2.5. We can see we try to estimate some metal and non-metal compounds, totally 10 types of compounds of PM2.5 in Taiwan. This time, this one is a study related to carbon monoxide, so ozone. related to ozone. So ozone is a very interesting one because ozone is not a primary pollutant, it's a secondary pollutant. So but in case ozone is not emitted from the vehicle itself, but ozone can be generated based on some photochemical interaction between nitrogen dioxide and sunlight, let's say. So you can see most of ozone occurred, the hot spots of ozone, most of them occurred and show up in the mountainous areas, the rural areas. So that is very sad to say that we have PM2.5 and the nitrogen dioxide pollutants in the areas, but we also have ozone pollutants in the rural areas. So yeah, it's very sad to say like this way. And one of my students is from Indonesia, so we also apply the same approaches to estimate the PM2.5 and also nitrogen dioxide levels for Jakarta and Surabaya. These are the top two major cities in Indonesia. And I also work with several professors in not only in Taiwan but also from the mainland China and also from US. So we first apply our air pollution estimation to assess its impact to human health. For example, on this study, we worked together with Professor Pan Wenji from National Jiaotong Yangming University, and we use a database from our vice president Chen Jianren, and we try to assess the association between PM2.5 exposure and liver cancers. And my students have one studies, and this time we talk about the PM2.5 exposures with the type 2 diabetes in Taiwan. We use the National Health Research Database in Taiwan. And the other students focus on the end-stage renal diseases. So we work together with a lot of researchers, and this is the other student. This is one of my doctoral students from Indonesia. And this time we just try to use a global data set. We try to assess the association between PM2.5 exposures and the lower respiratory tract infections from a global view to see their relationship. Okay, this is the last one. And when I was at Harvard, I just got several chances to revisit the Harvard School of Public Health many times. So at that time, I worked here with Professor Susana Archiros, and I think she is now teaching in the University of Nicholas. I don't really remember the detail about the name of the university, but now she's also teaching in the US. And this time we also conducted a global study, and this time we try to focus on the acute effects of PM2.5 constitutes on mortalities. And this is the final slide. So based on we can have this kind of findings or some outcomes. Is totally, we really have to appreciate all of the very great supports from the Ministry of Science and Technology and also the NHI from Taiwan. Of course, I have to appreciate the support from the National University. I'm very sorry. We just got some some disruptions, but I hope you enjoy my presentations. And any questions or comments are welcome. That's it. Thank you.
You're muted.
Okay. Sorry. Thank you for Dr. Wu's excellent research speaking. And anyone have a question, please unmute yourself and just. Okay.
If anyone and I have a question about Professor Wu's research, and I just wondering that I see many about the greenness or before I saw some research about blueness. About your research or modeling, the Professor Wu counts about the blueness inside your model also.
Could you? I'm sorry. Maybe I don't catch your questions. Could you please repeat again?
I think that greenness means the forest or the and the blueness is a kind of river or some ocean. Is that also a factor that can affect the health or the status?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So
just curious about the model.
okay. So basically, just like I mentioned to you, the basic approach we use is land use regressions. So that in case we try to use some land use land cover related emission sources as predictors to estimate the spatial variations of air pollution for non-metro area, let's say. So just like Yayun said, I think a water body, let's say, water is also a very important source for air pollution. Not the source, let's say. Sometimes some people agree with that. A big area of water, such like a pond, can be a very good, just like a sink. They say it can purify the air pollution surrounding for that areas. I mean, surrounding the ponds, maybe you will have some like a sand area, some sand lands. Then you have some big wind, then sand land might bring the sand into the air. So somehow, some people say that, I mean, some water might be positive or negative related to air pollution. I mean, when you have a stable conditions, water can purify the air quality for an area. But if you have a big wind or strong wind, this kind of wind might bring the sands from the surface to the air, then increase the air pollution levels in that area. But in our study, we also consider the effects of the river or inland waters in our model. Try to consider the effects on the air pollution levels in the model. That's it.
Oh, Yayun,
Just
you're
tell me
muted again.
Yeah, I'm a host because I logged out just now, so I cannot speak by myself. Sorry. I don't know why. And did anyone have any other question or do you have any question?
So you
Okay.
kill me. I
Yes.
think I have a really short, naive question for Dr. Wu, and I think time is limited, so I'll make it shorter. So, following Yayun's question, I think your study is really interesting in that green space and all the land use pattern. And one thing that's out of my curiosity is because temples, like traditional temples, they are incense burning and just paper burning, but it's commonly also surrounded by green space because there are trees and other surroundings. So how do you tear apart the health effect of green space that's regarded as a preventive one, and like the joss paper burning, which is known as a hazardous one to, for example, like neurocognitive outcomes? So I'll be interested about your thought on this point.
Okay, many thanks for questions from Dr. Wei. These are very good questions. So maybe before we start talk about this kind of question, maybe we could say something like the limitation for a GIS database. So let's think about the land use land cover information from two ways. Land use indicates how you use this kind of but let's say we just take a building as an example. Building is a kind of land cover, right? From the satellite, you can see a lot of house or built up area from the sky. So this is a land cover. We use this kind of building for as a school, for education, or as a market. So this is called we call this as a land use. So in general, from a GIS database, let's say we just simply obtain this is a second-hand database. So we just simply obtain the distributions of temples from the governmental database. So that in case, I am not pretty sure, to be honest, for this part. I'm not pretty sure how they identify the size of the temples in the database. Just like the data way mentions, in the temple, you might also have some green space surrounding the temples. So in the case when they generated the temple database, if they also include the size, the areas of forest or vegetated areas, so that one that they will be combined together as a temple in my database. So this is my answer for your questions. But for green spaces, actually we also have the other, just like the other independent database. to identify the distributions of green spaces in Taiwan. So these two are not the same databases, so somehow I'm not pretty sure. Maybe this one can start to also to solve the problems when we consider tables, the distributional table, but we also include the green spaces in the table, surrounding tables during the calculations.
Okay, thank you, Professor, with excellent speech. And thank you for your time again. And now, because of time, we need to go to the next speaker. And thank you, Professor Wu. And
many
on
thanks.
behalf of BTBA, it's our great honor and the privilege to invite Dr. Lan Fanyun for the second talk of today's seminar. He received his PhD in population health science at Harvard University and is now a postdoctoral research fellow at Cambridge Health Alliance, Harvard Medical School, and the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. He is also an occupational physician at National Cheng Kung University Hospital in Taiwan. His primary research interest involves environmental and occupational medicine and epidemiology. Let's welcome his topic today. And okay, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chen, for your kind introduction. So hello, everyone. I'm gonna go really quick throughout the probably 15 or 20 minutes or so, kind of go through what I've been doing. I've been working on throughout the past few years with regards to occupational health disparities, improving the well-being of workers at risk. And I will especially focusing on certain working population I've been working on. So as Dr. Chen introduced, my name is Fanyun Lan, and I'm doing my postdoc research fellow at Occupational Environmental Medicine Department at Cambridge Health Alliance. And of course, thank you for Boston Taiwanese Biotechnology Association's invitation. So let me quickly give you some background introduction that, from the data of the WHO or World Health Organization, that nearly 50% of world's population are workers, which means around 3.5 million people are working. And also, which is unfortunate that around 4 to 6% of GDP loss annually is due to illness and injuries due to unhealthy and hazardous working conditions and environments. Also, even more unfortunate and surprising and astonishing fact is that around 2 million deaths from unsafe work takes place every year, which means more than 2 million people die every year from work-related diseases and injuries. And lastly, not all workers have the same risk of experiencing a work-related health problem even when they have the same job. So later on, I will introduce research I've been focusing on, especially on the two important working population. The first one is firefighters, and the second one is essential workers, especially like healthcare workers and other grocery workers during the COVID-19 pandemic. So I'm going to start with firefighters study I've been focusing on. Kind of background introduction, firefighting is a very dangerous job, and there's a variety of occupational and environmental hazards during firefighters' daily working life, including shift work, stressful tasks, extreme temperature, chemical hazards, long sedentary periods, and there's also emergent evidence showing that there's a culture of unhealthy eating and other bad healthy lifestyle behaviors among firefighters. So, due to so many occupational hazards and lifestyle-related risk factors among firefighters, there are prevalent diseases and chronic illness being investigated and demonstrated among these important working population, which include the first health disease or heart disease or cardiovascular disease, which is the #1 mortality and morbidity cause for firefighters. And then the second one is cancers. And third one is psychological disorders, including PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder and suicidal thoughts. So, it is important to preserve the human resources and the workforce for this important working population. And it's important to implement the reactive preventive strategy for them. This is a publication published by my advisor in PI for my recent current lab, Dr. Stephen Scales, which is published in the NEJM a few years ago, and they use the data from the federal official data they investigate the data from 1994 to 2004, and they looked into the individual case of line of duty deaths, which is related to cardiovascular causes, and it's also called sudden cardiac deaths. And they basically found 449 sudden cardiac death cases throughout the 10-year period in the United States. And as you can see from the table below, that the timing of the occurrence of sudden cardiac deaths is actually not at random. So as you can see, like fire suppression or response to alarm, these kind of emergency duty or the timing reactive to emergency actually can cause like more risk or greater risk for sudden cardiac deaths for firefighters. And in addition to work-related hazards, we also found that behavior-related risk factors or lifestyle behaviors are also important factors for firefighters prevent chronic diseases, including cardiovascular diseases. And actually, our previous studies found that in North America, career firefighters, especially when during their late career, the prevalence of obesity and overweight is pretty high, even higher than the general population. And overweight and obesity has been demonstrated to be one of the major causes for a bunch of chronic illness diseases, including cardiovascular disease. So when thinking of the preventive strategy for preserving the workforce of firefighters, it's almost impossible to ask them not to do firefighting, right? So there's no way to, or there's minimal way to eliminate the occupational hazards during their firefighting job. But there do have some ways to intervene their lifestyle behaviors and to act as a primary preventive strategy. So we have been thinking of a theoretical framework and trying to implement the preventive strategy as early as possible for firefighters. And in the United States, the earliest stage of firefighters' career is actually when they are still trained in the fire academies. And at that time, they were called fire recruits. And the New England area, the training duration ranged from 12 to 20 weeks in total. And throughout the training, they were trained to be equipped with some, firefighting skills and other professional and rescuing techniques. And we were thinking like to incorporate a healthy lifestyle intervention into their existing firefighting training curriculum. But before that, we conducted the first study to investigate the trajectory of and the effects of existing training curriculum during fire academy training among these new firefighters, and we followed until they graduate from fire academy. And we actually found this is published, one of the major results we found and published in the journal Medicine, Science, and Sports and Exercise. And as you can see from the table, the push-up is actually one of the parameters we measured for these new firefighter population, but we also measured their BMI, percent body fat, blood pressure, and mental health. But they almost all of them basically show similar trajectories throughout academy training and during their early career of firefighter. So as you can see, these box plots actually show a typical trajectory for new firefighters in terms of their health and fitness. So as you can see from baseline, mid-training to graduation throughout the academy training, their health and fitness parameters actually improved a lot significantly throughout academy training. However, after they graduate from academy and became career firefighters, especially during their early career and as professional firefighters, we found basically most of the gains or the benefits gained from the academy training dissipated or rapidly lost after they became career firefighters, which is an alarming sign for us as occupational health practitioners that, after they became career firefighters, they need more, health and fitness capacity to deal with their daily firefighting work. But at that time, after they got the 12 to 20 week training through our academy, but the existing work environment actually does not support their healthy lifestyle and their health and fitness. So we have been thinking of a theoretical framework, which is called Firefighting Mediterranean Pyramid. It's a multi-domain healthy lifestyle behaviors, including high quality diet and adequate sleep and social interaction, as well as mental resilience and adequate physical activity, etc. So based on the theoretical framework, we came up with a 7-item MEDI lifestyle score, trying to measure their healthy lifestyle behaviors, especially for firefighters. So it's comprised of 7 items, including optimal BMI, the avoidance of smoking and other toxic substances, and high quality diet, as well as adequate physical activity, minimized sedentary behaviors and other good sleep behaviors, etc. And we use this kind of theoretical framework, Firefighting Mediterranean Pyramid, and came up with a healthy lifestyle intervention and incorporated into their existing training curriculum. And we end up with another study, which is still under review, but hasn't published yet. So as I showed before, we conducted a pure observational study among a historical control group without any intervention. And we further enrolled 2 more classes from the New England Fire Academies. And we this time we incorporated throughout the 12 to 20 week academy training, we incorporated our designed healthy lifestyle intervention. And we actually found, compared to the historical control group, their MEDI lifestyle score, which is a proxy to their healthy lifestyle behaviors, improved significantly throughout academy training from baseline to graduation. And their systolic blood pressure actually decreased significantly throughout academy training, which actually provide as a supporting evidence that a healthy lifestyle intervention could actually could be beneficial to these new firefighters to maintain their health and fitness after they graduate from the fire academy. So this is kind of the first example I want to share with you that some kind of preventive strategy can actually eliminate the occupational health disparities for this important working population. And later on, I want to go through other study I've been working on essential workers during the COVID-19 pandemic, especially healthcare workers. So this is the very first study we conducted and published in the probably the earliest during the COVID-19 pandemic, which related to work-related COVID-19 transmission. And we actually used the data from 6 countries, the official data and reports from the CDC of 6 Asian countries, including Taiwan. And we extracted the personal factor and occupational components of each individual CDC report at the very beginning of the local transmission. So after the investigation of the extracted occupational factors, and we found around 48% of COVID-19 early local transmission are probably work-related. And we further looked into the high-risk occupational group, and we found the greater risk, or the greatest proportion of the high-risk occupation is actually health professional, which is not surprising that that is also called healthcare workers. But we also identify other high-risk occupations. They are often underestimated or unreported, which are occupational drivers, professional transport workers, service and sales workers, cleaning and domestic workers, public safety workers such as police officers and firefighters, religious workers, construction workers. So kind of, as you can see from this table, like most of them share a common characteristic that they are basically essential workers, and they have like pretty high frequency, frequent, the probability to contact with others or general population. So after publication of this paper, we'll be thinking like it is important to identify high-risk occupation and trying to implement some kind certain preventive strategy for them, trying to keep these essential workers' work environment and the workforce safe. So we started to came up with some evidence with regards to screening program. And as you can recall, is at the very beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, there is actually very limited testing capacity because there's limited supply on the PCR testing kit. So the easiest way or the most convenient way for a essential workers employer or their work environment is to implement a symptom-based screening program, which means that by means of asking employees self-reported symptoms, we are able to identify who are those populations that are at greater risk and to differentiate them from those with lower risk being transmitted by COVID-19. And this is one study we published on PLOS ONE at the very beginning of the COVID-19. And we actually used self-reported symptomology, the combination of self-reporting, the workers' self-reported symptoms and related to their their PCR assay results afterwards. And we found certain combination of symptoms did serve as better predictive factors for positive PCR results. So as you can see from the panel here, the stars on the above actually shows a different level of statistical significance. And so the myalgia, which is muscle ache and fever, headache, and the loss of smelling and loss of taste, these combination can better predict of a positive PCR results. On the other hand, only nasal symptom or no symptom, the combination actually predicted of favor the negative results. So after the publication of this paper, our CEO in our healthcare system, which is Campus Health Alliance, we were able to use the findings to kind of design a symptom-based screening protocol for our healthcare workers and trying to keep our workforce safe and working environment safe at the very beginning, even when the testing kit is very limited. And in addition to screening program, at the very beginning of the pandemic, even the US CDC, they did not recommend, as you can recall, they did not recommend indoor masking at all. But at that time, we believe PPE use or probably indoor masking or face masking use can efficiently and effectively protect a essential worker or healthcare worker from being affected. So our healthcare system, our CEO actually announced the mandate of indoor masking, universal masking pretty early at the end of March 2020. However, the whole state, the Massachusetts government state, Charlie Baker, the government actually made the announcement at the second week of May. So this kind of time difference actually can make a significant difference in terms of the trajectory, the trends of infection in certain populations. So the upper panel actually shows the transmission trend in our working healthcare worker population, which is employees, around 8,000 employees in our healthcare system. And the lower panel actually shows the general population, the whole population in the Massachusetts statewide. And these kind of time difference actually can affect the transmission trend simply due to the implementation of universal masking and indoor masking mandate. And after our screening program is implemented and our universal masking policies implemented, we still found certain population, they are most susceptible and vulnerable to COVID-19 infection. So we conducted this study among our healthcare worker cohort, which is employees in our healthcare system. And we found that frontline care workers actually had a 1.7-fold higher incidence rate compared to non-frontline workers overall. And after universal masking was instituted, the strongest risk factor were residential community infection rate and race, which means that if you reside in those communities with greater infection rate, or you are of the race of minority, especially those who are African American or Latinos or Hispanics, they are these are all independent social demographic risk factors for COVID-19 infection. Even you are working in the same working environment and even the same job position and job content, the working characteristics. So after the publication of this study, we were able to identify those in our working place, those with especially susceptible and vulnerable population, and we can implement additional protective strategy for them. And this study we conducted is on grocery retail workers. So in addition to healthcare workers, we are also caring other essential workers during the COVID-19 pandemic. And this work was actually done in the summer of 2020 with the collaboration of the state government. And we conducted a cross-sectional the survey in a large grocery chain in the South Boston area. And at that time, we found around 20% of the grocery workers in Boston had COVID-19, and more than 75% of them were asymptomatic, which is an alarming sign for them because, you know, asymptomatic or COVID-19 infection among grocery workers is not only a threat to grocery industry, the workforce, but also to general population, because you and I, we are always can be the customers in a grocery stores. So after the publication of this study, we were reported by almost 100 international media press, including Fox News, ABC News, and CNN, etc. And the Trader Joe's, you must know these, one of the largest America's grocery store chain. They after our publication, they made an announcement that they are going to release regularly in terms of their employees' infection rate, as well as their policy to protect their workers. And so as you can see, the main results from the table below, that we actually found if a worker in grocery store, they are working in job positions with direct customer exposure, they had more than 5 times greater risk compared to other workers. And if they were able to practice social distancing and other mitigation policy in the workplace, they had like around 70 to 80% reduction in their anxiety and depressive symptoms. So this is pretty much the end of my presentation. I'm going to summarize what I've shared with you in the previous slides. That first of all, we found occupational disparities in firefighters and essential workers during the COVID-19 pandemic do exist. For firefighters, for those firefighters responding to emergency, they have greater risk of sudden cardiac death. And for those firefighters with poorer lifestyle behaviors, they have worse health and fitness outcomes or health conditions. As to essential workers during the COVID-19 pandemic, we found patient-facing or customer-facing essential workers, they have greater risk of contracting COVID-19. And those who resided in the communities with greater and higher infection rate of COVID-19, or they are of race and ethnicity of minority, they are at greater risk being infected, in terms of COVID-19. So after identifying these occupational disparities among the workers and in a variety of different kind of working place, it is important to implement preventive strategy for these workers at risk. Okay, that's pretty much the end of my presentation, and I welcome any kind of question or comments.
Okay, does anyone have question? Please raise your hand. Oh, Annie.
Oh, hey,
Wait.
let me start my video. Thank you for your great talk. I just have a kind of like a random and quick question.
Yeah.
What do you think about like recent lifting of the universal mask policy? Do you think it's already the time to lift the policy, or yeah, I'm curious about your opinion. Thank you.
Yeah, very, very good point. I would say my answer only reflect my personal standpoint that I think to comment on this policy, we should look into not only the infection rate, but also the virulence, which means if the infection can lead to other severe complications like ICU admission or other hospitalization, even death. So for now, we know Omicron does have like greater probability to transmit it among different populations, but there is also evidence showing that the virulence of the variant is actually much lower than the previous strand, right? So I guess the policymaker, they are thinking of like they already get. To be honest, from my standpoint, they already give up to kind of get rid of COVID-19 from human societies. I think the picture is quite clear for me that they think that we will be the virus will be like exist in the human the human society like for a long run. So if that's the case, I would say I can understand they are trying to going back to normal, since even you are infected by COVID-19 or the virus, the SARS-CoV-2 virus, you won't get like too bad or too severe outcomes. Then the infection is kind of tolerable. So yeah, that's my observation, and for me personally, we can talk about that offline.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think next one is Yo Tian. Final question. Thank you.
Is it Yo from Yo Tian?
Oh, no, sorry, I don't. It's not me.
You just okay.
Okay.
Yeah. As anyone has more question? Or just...
I think people may be more interested in like questions like how to file a tax return, which is actually the problem I've been facing for recent days. I just got my 1042S from Harvard yesterday, so I will be going to file my tax return.
Okay. Then...
And yeah, I also welcome other question about occupational health. Like if you are working in a greater risk occupations, you think your work is not good for your health, you can just share your experience and we can have some discussions about that.
Okay, so I have a final question.
Yeah, sure.
In your opinion, so it's about the situation in Taiwan. Can you do the similar or study in Taiwan like in American?
Yeah, thank you for your opportunity. It's really a good question, because that's what I proposed to the Taiwan 科技部 for my 2030. You know, as you can see from my previous study, the firefighter cohorts are actually the cohort we established in the United States, and especially focusing on the New England area. So the MEDI-LABSA score, or the firefighters Mediterranean pyramid, has never been validated and investigated in any Asian countries or Asian firefighter population. So this the first step. I want to validate this theoretical framework and the score in Taiwanese firefighters population, and I've been approved by the the president of Tainan Bureau of Firefighting. And yeah, I'm very looking forward to the results and the collaboration with Taiwanese firefighters.
Okay, thank you for your answer. And it's time to closing. And thank you for all your participation today. And see you all next time.
Thank
Is
you.
Any question? Okay, thank you everyone. Let's see you next time.
就直接关掉咯。
我关掉喽，大家辛苦了，谢谢兰兰，
谢
谢
谢，
谢谢，
真的是好奇怪，怎么会有骇客？
我们还在
第一次
还在
遇到
stream 哦，我们还在 stream 哦，那个
好
那个 stream 要关掉。
对
好，谢
对
谢。